that
Why?
it is. I mean, it's really true. I mean, basically the taking the whole issue with the streetcars in Los Angeles
Yeah.
is real. Yes, it was a funny cartoon and all that, but it's based on reality in a lot of ways.
I haven't seen it in so long.
It'd be
It's
interesting.
like all you remember is Jessica Rabbit and what was the guy who played the detective? Sort of like
Oh, what's his name? Yeah,
Bob Hodgkins.
Bo
Hoskins.
Hoskins.
Bob
Hoskins.
Hoskins. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. That's pretty much
Yeah.
all I remember about it.
It'd be interesting to
Yeah.
watch. It's fascinating watching old movies again.
Yes.
Because sometimes they hold up, and sometimes you're just cringing. Like, oh wow, I can't believe it's like that.
Yeah. That's it. It's but like going back to the 80s.
Yeah. Well, my worst one was when my son was little. At some point, I don't know how we got this idea in our heads that we were going to watch the Bad News Bears
Oh
with
wow.
Walter Matthau. Talk about a terrible movie. It was a terrible movie when it was made, but watching it from a modern day perspective, I mean, this guy is smoking, drinking, driving around in a convertible with his baseball team, like hanging off the edges. I just about had a heart attack as a semi-modern day parent. This was 15 years ago.
So what's your
It
point?
was a while ago. Things were very lawless back in the good old days.
Yeah. Yep.
No
it's true.
seatbelts, I mean, you can have nostalgia over it as you grew up among it, and it was great. But now you look back on it and go, wow, but we survived.
Most of us, anyway.
Yeah.
We all did, kind of by definition.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So, I don't know. Are you ready,
Unpadded-
Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
I
All
keep
right.
thinking
Well,
about,
then, go ahead.
I keep thinking about padded dashboards. You remember those with the steel on them and so on, so that before
Yeah.
they were so safety conscious.
Yes.
And when Dad would brake hard, he'd always stick his arm out to catch you before you smashed into it. Yeah.
Yeah, been there.
All right. Well, let's say welcome to everybody who's on board today for our October virtual apple cider meeting. And we have Carol, who has virtual brownies to share since we have no real food.
Yes.
Kind of thing. Yes. So, so I guess we'll take it away. Adam, you wanted to start off, or Steve, did you want to do news or do something like that first as usual, or what?
Well, I think the big news is the phones. Were you planning on talking about that, Adam and Chuck?
No, I was going to go into watchOS 7.0.2 in detail.
Oh, good.
So
I was going to do a comprehensive review of the iPod. So
all right. Yeah, I was reading your
where
article.
is the next generation iPod Touch?
Yeah.
Right.
I was reading your article on Tidbits, and I think that we don't need to talk about the speeds and feeds. Here, go read these Apple websites.
Oh my gosh, they just about killed us on that. I mean, for people, I don't know, how many people here have watched the Apple event? Yeah, a few. I mean, it's worth watching. I mean, it's so well done. I mean, it's gorgeous to watch. But they literally will, put up this slide that's got, the specs of a camera on it for 4 seconds or something like that. And we're like, but, and you can't even begin. So yeah, they just hammered us with details, and I was really trying to step back from that a little bit in the coverage and try to put it all in context, because let's face it, these are the greatest iPhones ever. That's sort of the definition of the iPhones they just release.
Oh. Sorry, my cat just bit me.
That doesn't happen in a normal meeting.
It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting
No.
without a pet coming on frame.
Well, he had to sit on next to me, and I was trying to keep this up, and he lays there, and then I touched him the wrong way apparently, and all of a sudden he turned around, bit me, and then jumped off the table, as usual. Because pet me, bite me.
Well, maybe Chuck, maybe you should get us started here. So we got something clean for Mac Voices too.
we'll do the intro and then take off. And just a couple basic rules, not really rules, but just so you know that there are shots that in the edit that you will be on camera. So if you're not comfortable with that, you may want to just turn your camera off and listen to audio, because I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. But there is literally no way to cut anybody, just one person out of the show. So just be aware of that. If possible, if you can mute yourself, because that cuts down the ancillary noise, and therefore keeps the camera from pulling away to you when you sneeze or when the cat bites you or whatever.
Yes,
So,
I will do that right now.
yeah. Other than that, we'll just go for it and have a little fun. Oh, and I guess Shirley or Steve, when it's time to give us the hook, send me a chat or something so we can do a reasonable out. Because Adam and I have a tendency to just go and go and go.
We don't have anything to talk about today, Chuck, though. I mean, this is just going to be ad lib, right?
Oh yeah. Well, it's always ad lib, Adam, but
Oh, sorry.
So with that, in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have a special show this time around, as it is whenever we get a chance to visit a user group. And now we're doing, it seems like a lot more virtually, because they're having virtual meetings and makes life easy. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Adam Angst. Adam, welcome. It's great to have you, as always.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much for doing these.
Oh, hey, this is always a blast, because we get to hang out with our people. And this time we get to hang out with the people from the Apple CIDER Mac user group. Apple CIDER, thank you for having us. It's great to see you all. Yeah, and I told them to mute their mic, so there's no, hey, but don't worry about it. So Adam, gee, I don't know what we're going to talk about. I mean, there's no
WatchOS
news.
7.2, as we said. I mean, very important update. Everyone should go and get it immediately because it fixes a battery life problem. And, if the ECG app won't launch for you, those are the two fixes. And okay, we're done with WatchOS 7.0.2.
Yeah, it's going to be a short show. Yeah, but that, listen, that is good kind of PSA kind of thing, because the battery life issues I haven't had them, but I know some people have, and the EEG thing, definitely want to have that working. So
well, and actually, not to steal the focus from what we're going to talk about and focus on WatchOS, but there actually has been another issue that we were tracking a little bit with people who are having trouble with either data disappearing from health or workouts not having GPS tracks. And Apple has acknowledged this and has a fairly lengthy support note on it. Unfortunately, the solution is you back up your iPhone, you back up your watch, you unpair the watch, you erase the iPhone, and then you restore the whole kit and caboodle. And people have said, yeah, it takes 90 minutes. It's annoying as all get out, but it does solve the problem. So if you're seeing problems with WatchOS and especially health data or workout data, that unfortunately may still be the solution. We don't know if WatchOS 7.0.2 resolves that. Apple did not say anything about it in the release notes. So okay, now we can finish with that.
Yeah, and I should have said this in the pre-show too to our friends at Apple CIDER. If anybody has a question or whatever while we're going, just unmute your mic and shout at us. That's more than welcome. I'll try to ask you for questions, but if you have something that you just can't wait, please don't hesitate. So we have just come off of the high-speed event yesterday as we recorded this, and the big focus was HomePod 2 and the iPhones 12. So why don't we? Where do you want to start, Adam? I'll let you guide us.
Let's follow Apple's lead and dispense with the HomePod Mini. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but just because there's not that much interesting about it. I mean, it's a great little device as far as we can tell, but it doesn't really do hardly anything different from the bigger HomePod. It's just about half the height and 2/3 the width. It's a little more spherical, a little rounder. I really thought it should have a little slot so you could put a flower in. It looked a little like a vase. Yeah, so I mean, the HomePod Mini, Apple started their event and just jumped right in. And the big news, of course, is the HomePod Mini is only $99. So it brings all of the capabilities of the HomePod, or almost all the capabilities, and probably pretty good sound quality. No one really knows until we get our hands on it, to the line with a much lower price.
I think that's underselling it. I mean, I was kind of excited for this because first of all, it puts the Apple ecosystem even more places in my home.
Yes.
And so that to me is a big thing.
I think that, as I said, that price, the $99 price, really makes a huge difference because, so we have 2 HomePods right now. We have one sort of downstairs and one in the bedroom, and they're great, and we use them fairly heavily, but they're not always where you want them to be, and sometimes, like in the bedroom, it's a little less interesting. I mean, we're not like we're listening to music mostly. That's mostly what we do in the HomePod, or we do ask it about weather, and sometimes you just ask it what time it is because you don't want to like roll over and whack watches or iPhones. But I could easily see that one being replaced by a HomePod Mini, and then taking our second big one downstairs and turning it into a stereo pair, for instance. Or my office has nothing, and I have to use the music app on my Mac like an animal or something. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, how do you get used to this? I mean, and yes, I can use Siri, but I have to say I really do. I have gotten used to playing most of my music on the HomePod. And it's not perfect, but it's really good. And I agree that being able to spread it around throughout the house is going to be a win.
That
Yeah,
sort of was my big takeaway. I was waiting for $249 because the full HomePod is $399, and so maybe they'll come in at $199. And when he said $99, I'm going, oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, much.
And
much
I feel like this just pretty much guarantees that Apple's going to own the Christmas season.
Well,
If
people may have not have
that-
noticed, but Apple removed all of the third-party speakers and headsets from the Apple stores last week.
Yeah.
So we kind of figured there was something coming.
Yeah. And there's so much speculation as to whether there will be more things coming because we have more events with the alleged Apple Studio headphones. So, the over-the-ear headphones. So we'll see.
The one thing I will say, I mean, in my understanding is that in this field, in this sort of the smart speaker world, I think Apple is still a fairly distant third behind Amazon's Echo and the Google Home stuff. And I have to say, it probably depends a little bit on what you do. I mean, for me, I'm really not interested in asking Siri questions. None of these things answer my questions very well. So I usually want to read the answer. I don't want to listen to the answer. So that's been, kind of a problem there for me. But I think a lot of people have gotten into them, and the Amazon Echoes, I think you can get them like for $19 now for the super cheap ones on sale sometimes. So, Apple is still competing uphill in that regard. Plus, both Amazon and Google now have devices that have screens, and not necessarily. I don't necessarily, want one of those constantly showing me things and attracting my attention while I'm trying to cook or something. But I think they are popular with some people.
Yeah, the screen thing intrigues me. I've got an Echo Show 5 that I got, as in a box of Cracker Jacks or something, and I haven't figured out what it's good for. Yeah. I mean, it has a constantly cycling thing about, here's the latest news. Here's how to cook a pizza.
No. Don't want any news. No news.
Well, there's that. But so it's kind of been. I was kind of curious to see, gee, will I like this or not? And it's like I don't know what to do with it. The Echoes. I mean, boy, you can really get me going on that because they're responsive and arguably a little better than Siri at some recognition. But A, I also am not sure I'm not being spied on, and B, that is the absolute last thing I want to listen to any music on. I mean, a 1965 AM radio Volkswagen sounded better. So,
push buttons.
So that's why I'm excited about the HomePod Mini. If I want to go and listen to really sit down and listen to music, I'll go and get a really dedicated set of speakers. I've got some really nice audio engines back here. But to have the podcasts or music throughout the house, wherever I happen to be, and to be able to tell it, hey, I want you to play this. That's a game changer.
Yeah, the HomePod Mini probably won't sound quite as good. No one, of course, knows this, but we don't. It just was announced, but it probably won't sound quite as good as the original HomePod for two reasons. One is that it simply doesn't have. It's not big enough to have the same amount of stuff in there. So in terms of like 7 independent tweeters and all that the HomePod had, those aren't in the HomePod Mini. And then secondly, it doesn't have quite the same level of processing. So one of the things the HomePod can do is it has this concept of spatial awareness. So if you put it in the corner of your room, it knows it's there and sends the music out into the room rather than into the wall. So that's really clever as well. So the HomePod Mini won't be quite as good in those regards. The one advantage it has over the HomePod is very unknown at the moment. It has something called the U1 chip, Apple's U1 chip, and what that gives you is ultra wideband, which helps with proximity sensing. So you can take your iPhone, say you're playing music on your iPhone, and you can walk over to a HomePod and you can put it next to the HomePod, and the music will transfer. And that happens now with current iPhones and current HomePods. What apparently the U1 chip will somehow enable later this year, Apple says, is a better handoff experience. We don't know what that means. We just have no idea. They didn't say in the announcement. They didn't clarify about it at all. So that's the one thing. The original HomePod does not have a U1, so it apparently will not have a better handoff experience. I've handed off stuff to my HomePods like 4 times to test, and that's it. So I don't see this as a big deal.
I don't know. I'm like you. And none of us know. But I have to say that I've recently, since iOS 14 and my AirPods Pro, which I'm not wearing tonight, but since iOS 14, I feel like the whole handoff thing or the switching between devices has gotten so much better, and it does seem to really know. Okay, I'm talking on the phone. The phone call's over. I want to watch something on my iPad. I fire that up, and the audio transfers over, and I never touched it. And it does that so well now that I'm really optimistic about this feature and what it can mean for us.
We'll see.
So we will see. We will see.
All right. So, okay, so we're done now, right? We don't have anything more to talk about.
Well, just one or two little things. So, which iPhone 12 are you getting, Adam?
Well, oh man. Okay, so we got not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 iPhone 12 models, which is a step up. I mean, last year we had 3. We had the iPhone 11, 11 Pro, and 11 Pro Max. And so we got 4 this year, and happily we got the baby bear model, the iPhone 12 Mini. I cannot believe I have been banging this drum for so many years. Yeah, it's a small iPhone, and if I were going to buy an iPhone, it would probably be the iPhone 12 Mini. The problem is I have an iPhone 11 Pro, and I just don't know how they compare. And particularly from the camera standpoint, because let's face it, the place where Apple makes the biggest innovations and is doing the most work is in the cameras, and particularly on the Pro line of the iPhone 12 Pros, the Pro and the Pro Max. But I have the 3-camera iPhone 11 Pro, and so what I don't know is, would I be going backwards if I went to the iPhone 12 Mini, which is only a 2-camera system? And I mean, I think in some respects, obviously I would be, because I'd have one less camera to be able to, because it's the wide, ultra wide, and telephoto combination. I wouldn't have the telephoto. So so that would be a hit. But there's also all the computational stuff that Apple's doing that behind the scenes, and that's where it starts to become just like, we'll have to wait and see until the comparison photos start coming out. That I'm sure that all the digital photography sites are, they're ready to hit the pre-order button on Friday morning as soon as they can, because they want to get these and do those exact shots. Well, this is what the iPhone 11 does, and the iPhone 11 Pro, and the iPhone 12 Mini, and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and so you can actually see the difference. That's the only way to test this stuff at this point. There's no way to know based on the specs how it's going to be. I mean, we just don't. So, but that said, boy, I really want something a little smaller. I mean, I happen to have here, so this is my iPhone 11 Pro. This is, next to it is an iPhone 7, and they're pretty big. They're pretty, there's a pretty big difference there. And the iPhone 7, if I believe the Mini is smaller than the iPhone 7. It's just a hair. It's like a 1/4 inch taller and wider than the first generation iPhone SE, which was the last squared off one. So that was our last really small iPhone. And I know people who will not give that thing up because it's what fits their hands and what fits their pockets.
One way you might determine whether it's a good idea or not, and I can't take credit for this. Gary Malpaz was on another show with me, and he, while they were doing the announcement, he was doing an analysis of his photo library using the metadata, so he could tell how many pictures he took with the wide, with the ultra wide, with the telephoto, and he's using that to say, okay, this is how I use my camera photo.
Clever.
I know. I mean, it's brilliant.
I never thought about doing that.
It's so obvious. But he, okay, this is what I use the camera and the way I use it. And now, which one suits my needs, or do I really need to go high end, or do I never use my telephoto? So yeah, that was brilliant.
Well, and to be honest, so I have this iPhone 11 Pro, which I got it last year, right when it came out. And one of the things I did was take action shots of cross-country races. And so runners moving quickly, and I needed to be able to take bursts, which Apple made much, much harder in iOS 13, and I had to actually get an app that made it easier. And honestly, I wasn't very impressed with the photos. They weren't that good. And I don't think I was doing anything wrong. I mean, I had a monopod actually. It wasn't a tripod, but I was holding the camera still. And some of them I had really, I mean, you could really tell when a cloud went over. That if the cloud went over, it wasn't bright sunny, the pictures got noticeably worse. And then one race towards the end, it was just a cloudy, dark day, and the pictures were distinctly worse. So, it was one of those things where Apple shows us photos during the keynotes. You're like, oh my gosh, those are so amazing. Yeah, well, I want to see them out there taking pictures of a cross-country race and show me just how wonderful they are. And yeah, maybe you can do it, but maybe not. And so we'll see. But one of the things that they did talk about in the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max is they've now got this Lidar scanner. So it's actually it's a light detection and sort of bouncing light waves off of things, and that gives better depth perception to make autofocus faster, and also to improve the quality in night mode. So I actually had some hope that the Pro models might do better in that sports photography use case, but again, we won't see until we can actually try them.
Yeah. I have to say, since you brought up the Mini right off the bat, that I think the Mini owned the coolest thing about the whole presentation, and that was the 3-case introduction with the James Bond music.
Yes.
I mean, that was brilliant. It was fun and it was brilliant.
Yeah, there weren't quite as many funny little bits in this one as there were in the previous thing. The previous event that Apple did for the iPad Air and iPad and Apple Watch Series 6. They had these zooming shots through Apple Campus, and Craig Federighi, who's the VP of software, I guess, would be like caught walking down a hallway, and he'd see the camera and like duck away, which was really clever. Took half a second out of the whole thing. There wasn't quite as much of that sort of little amusements, but as Chuck said, when they introduced the iPad Mini, they started with the iPhone 12, sort of the mama bear size, and then it's like, oh, and here I have this thing, and she goes over to a podium where there's this stainless steel suitcase, and she snaps it open. There's another stainless steel suitcase. She snaps it open, and all the time the James Bond music is playing. So you can just imagine Q doing this. And then the third suitcase, she snaps it open, and there, sitting there, is the iPhone 12 Mini. So yeah, it was a great reveal, and really, yeah, I mean, kind of made the point also that we have the Pro Max, we have the Pro and the iPhone 12, and then we have the Mini at the third size. So it was a good way of hammering that home.
Yeah, and
so one of funny story on the other side of the spectrum. There was a friend of mine at Google once was telling me, this is years and years ago, when we were just starting to get into, this is actually back in the days of small phones, and they were just starting to get bigger. And one of the things he said actually is there was this weird trend, I guess, I don't know quite what to call it, or belief in Asia that young women were buying these huge phones because when they held the phone up to their head, it made their heads look smaller. And that was seen as making them more attractive, I guess. I was just like, seriously? Anyone thinks that way? All right. But I did not anticipate how big the phones have gotten, back then, how big they would get. And it's just, I'm so happy to see it going back. And partly, I like it smaller, but I just have to say, like, my wife, Tanya, who many of you have met, she's 5'3". She's a small person. She doesn't want, she actually got the iPhone SE because she'd been, struggling along with the 7 before, and it's the same size that she wasn't really happy about, but it was at least not any bigger. So,
Adam, I just wanted to make a point to everybody that I have an iPhone 8 Plus, and the screen is 5.5 inches.
Yes.
And the Mini is 5.4 inches.
Yes.
So the screen size is almost the same as the 8 Plus, but obviously they're making the body smaller because they're doing edge to edge and everything like that. So
yeah,
if I were to get maybe a new iPhone, the Mini wouldn't be that much different in screen size than what I have now with an 8 Plus.
That's a great point. And actually, the other thing to keep in mind is the screens on these are astonishing. So the Mini, in fact, has the highest dot pitch, basically the highest pixels per inch of any of them. I think it's like 478 pixels per inch. And so what that means is that the higher your dot pitch, the crisper everything is going to be. So these are going to be really, really gorgeous screens. Yeah, I was noticing that too. I was looking at it in the other direction actually, which is, the new Mini is only, like I said, 1/4 of an inch taller and wider than the old iPhone SE, the small one. But that old iPhone SE had a 4-inch screen. So it's got a 1.4 inch larger diagonal screen in a case that's only a hair bigger. So the engineering that goes into this, I think we've become a little blasé sometimes, like, oh yeah, it's an iPhone, isn't that great? These things are freaking magic. What Apple is doing here, it's astonishing. Every now and then you have to sit back and think about this a little bit. Like, how do they do that? How do they shoehorn all this stuff in there? It's just amazing what they can do. So yeah, you have to actually every now and then, stop being jaded and just like appreciate the enormity of the engineering effort that goes in.
Well said. Well said. At this point, folks, any questions, comments from you all? Who's buying new iPhones? Which one appealed to you? Everybody's buying new iPhones.
Yeah, if I were going to buy one, I may just stick with the 12 Mini.
Yeah.
Because it's basically the same size of what I have. Why spend all the money for the other ones when they're all going to do the same thing basically? I'm not a professional photographer, but I do take a lot of pictures. But these cameras are still pretty good if you're taking stills and things like that.
So the one thing I ran into this when I was writing up the article yesterday. Keep in mind, these days are hellish for us. So, we watch a 75-minute presentation, talk about it for a little bit, and then then write 2,400 write and edit 2,400 words about something that, like I'm trying to chase down every imaginable detail. I'm surprised we don't make many more mistakes than we do. We definitely made a couple. The upgrade decision on these is a little tricky. Right? I'm praising these things to the skies. I think Apple's done a great job. These are, no question, these are the best phones. I think the Mini is brilliant, but the upgrade decision is tricky. So I've got an iPhone 11 Pro. Why should I upgrade? Is one of these really that much better? Probably not. I mean, this thing, because I had to get the 256, I think it was like $1,100 last year. I want some more. I want to get more money out of this puppy. And so okay, 11s. Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a hard upgrade decision to make. The 10R and 10S still feels like it's on the edge. I mean, those are pretty good phones. I think the 10 is actually your sweet spot, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a Face ID phone. And it's the oldest Face ID phone with, it's got decent cameras and everything like that, but it's going to be as farthest you back. And Face ID is a problem right now because we're all wearing masks. So if you've got an iPhone 8 Plus, like you do, Ken, you got Touch ID. Who's going to give up a Touch ID phone right now? I mean, if you go out, if you're going out, much at all, Face ID is a royal pain in the butt. And so I wouldn't recommend that anyone upgrade from like an iPhone 8 right now, if they're relying on Touch ID and using Touch ID a lot. The iPhone SE that just came out, the second generation one, Tanya got one of those.
Yeah.
She likes it. Touch ID again. Sure, the new ones are great, but Touch ID, yeah, George.
Yeah, I was looking to get. I really wasn't looking to get a new iPad, but mine is my iPad goes out of warranty. With the 2-year Apple Care this coming December, and I thought the price was good for the new 2020 iPad, the 10.2. So that's what I elected to go for, not the 32, but the 128. A 32 or 64, they're almost useless for me, but I went with that and I thought it was good. But I just downloaded this. I don't know if you can see it. The SpaceX just launched successfully, and they landed the first stage on the little barge. So that probably brings SpaceX up to about 800 satellites up there. They got the okay with the FCC to put in the bid for the LEO, which is good for satellites because of what they did in Washington State. And can you imagine where Apple would be if Apple and SpaceX got together in the beginning? I mean, Apple would be like the crown jewel of the planet by this time, But anyway, I just wanted to break that into you. But if you're in the northern latitudes, SpaceX is going to be pretty hot. I know I put it for it. My brother put it for it for the beta test. So I'll let everybody know in the user group how that works out. Sorry to break into that, but I thought that was kind of news.
Actually, so a little bit of a segue here, because what SpaceX is doing in part is this, is internet communications. The really big thing that Apple spent a ton of time on at these announcements was 5G. And they were just going on and on. I mean, it turns, and that was sort of the high speed was, we've added 5G to all the iPhone 12s, and they brought the CEO of Verizon on, and I have to say, wow, am I underwhelmed? I mean, don't get me wrong, 5G is gonna be great. It's gonna be essential in 1, 2, 5, 10 years, whatever. But the fact is that right now, I don't believe a word they say. In terms of the coverage, I don't believe that the real world performance is going to be there. I mean, the guy's going on about 4 gigabits per second under ideal conditions. Yeah, come on. We've done networking before, folks. There's never ideal conditions. And when Apple's talking about 1 gigabits in typical conditions, again, I don't believe it. They don't live out here in upstate New York where, we're sometimes lucky to get a cell signal at all, much less, 4G or maybe even 5G. Coverage, I think, is going to be. Yeah. Right. Interesting. Yeah. So no, that's great. And this is Apple. Apple does this really well, actually, which is sometimes they get into a technology before it's there. And because Apple has got into it, now that they break the chicken and egg conundrum for the rest of the industry. So Verizon made all these announcements, and again, I mean, like one of my Tibbet's talk readers who lives in New York City was wildly unamused when they were talking about how Verizon has their 5G ultra wideband service in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. She was like, "Yeah, I live in New York. We can't even get decent normal service out of them. They keep
And,
promising and not actually delivering."
they're
So
trying to take advantage of, uh, people who really don't know the difference between 4G and 5G or 6G.
yeah,
Oh, this is the greatest thing. And even though it's not ready for prime time, oh, this is a selling point and
yeah.
people are going to buy it just because of that.
Now, to be fair, as I said, 5G is real. It's going to be a big deal, but it's going to take time to get a build out. So,
Right.
so 5G is a higher frequency, which means that the waves don't travel as far and they don't penetrate as well. And so the combination of those two mean that you need a lot more, not really towers, but base stations, basically. The idea is you might put base stations on telephone poles. Not every telephone pole, but certainly much closer than you would for the 3G or 4G networking. And so and the throughput really will be there eventually. The capacity will be there eventually. And at some point, it's going to be absolutely essential that we have this. We're going to, Apple's going to come out with AR glasses or something like that, where suddenly we actually do need some fairly real throughput while we're walking around. And so as I said, this is a good first step, but yeah, I can't see it making hardly any difference to hardly anyone in the real world right now.
Then you
Does
have people.
anybody?
I was going to say you
Does
have
anybody
people up
know
here.
that? Go ahead, George.
I was going to say you still have people up here in New York that are on Usenet.
Yes.
Like the RVs, and they're lucky if they get any signal at all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, if they're putting up all these beacons. Do the different phone carriers share these beacons, or does each phone carrier have to put up their own?
I believe that each carrier has to do their own. This is not one of those. I mean, it is possible that the carriers may have what are they called? Oh, I'm blanking slightly. Sub brands in essence that will piggyback on a network. So Cricket, for instance, I think piggybacks on AT&T. But no, AT&T and Verizon won't be sharing those.
Yeah. I have Spectrum, and they use the Verizon network.
Yeah.
At least not until Congress tells them they have to share.
Yeah.
Which
right.
but I want to put a plug in, I guess, for the fact that the 5G was included. I mean, I didn't see any percentage in Apple not including it. I mean, that means now these phones are they don't represent another that they're going to go out of what's the word? I guess not exactly obsolete, but they're not going to be seen as second-class citizens if and when 5G does come along, and in a widespread fashion. And that might be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But how many of you are rocking phones that are that old? So you will be able to take advantage. And I don't know what it costs to put 5G in, but certainly all the analysts and all the geeks, well, this is great. And so I think Apple avoided a ton of questionable press or questioning press.
Yes. Had they not done it, it would have been a problem.
It would have been a big problem. And it was brilliant. It's across the whole line. So Adam, if you get your Mini, or if I get a 12 Max, 12 Pro Max, they all have it. So we're set.
Of course, now we got to go. There's a lot of gravity involved.
Well, and why? I mean, how did Verizon, of all the companies, end up on the phone or on the stage? Sorry, who was that? Somebody said Bloomberg. I heard him.
Oh, I don't know if I'm muted or not.
No, you're good.
Oh,
I read a Bloomberg story that said that T-Mobile simply renamed their 4G service 5G.
Yeah, Apple or AT&T
So
did
if
something
you
similar.
take your Apple iPhone to the T-Mobile store, don't believe them.
Yeah.
It's not the speed of the 5G that we're expecting. It's simply a renamed 4G.
Yeah.
And so now all the other carriers have to put a little star after the 5, or it'll be Verizon 5G plus. It really was a dastardly move that they made, but T-Mobile made that move a year ago.
AT&T has done something very similar.
So they're
this is part of the
broadcasting.
problem.
They have 5G, but they don't.
Yeah. As I said, it will take some time to work its way out, and I do worry that those of us in more rural parts of upstate New York are going to be not seeing this for years to come anyway. But regardless, so Chuck, what about the MagSafe stuff? I thought that was brilliant.
I've heard a lot of talk about the MagSafe. I mean, to me, it's like, okay, they identified a problem that I first of all, I'll tell you right now, I've never understood the chargers you just lay down on the table and then lay it down. Well, not that, but I don't want to have to lean over my phone to see what's going on. So from day one, the only chargers I would buy were the ones that would angle the phone towards you. And so that gives you a better chance of hitting the sweet spot for the charging. But this is brilliant because it's sort of a little like the Apple Watch. You can feel when the charger slides into, or the watch, depending on which direction you're going, slides right into the sweet spot and is fully charging. And so, and then they took it a couple steps further and did some things. I don't know about you, but this is my iPhone, and inside the case is a metal plate so that I can stick it on a dash mount. Now I don't think I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah. So I don't know how to pronounce it. Sashi. Apparently, Soshi already announced a car mount for it, because of course it's just a magnet, right, in that regard.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, it's great to be able to just slap your phone on a magnetic car mount. The MagSafe charging I find fascinating, partly because, well, it solves, if you think about it, it solves the entire problem Apple couldn't fix with AirPower. That power mat, like the multi-device power mat they were going to do, and they literally had to give up because, well, put simply, physics is a bitch. Sometimes you can't break those laws. But the problem was always how to deal with the positioning. If you could put your devices anywhere on the mat, then it got very, very hard to deal with heat and all sorts of other interactions between the devices. But when you've got MagSafe, you put your thing down and it snaps into the exact perfect spot. There's no positioning problem at all. So it works with the Qi charging that we've got now. And then if you have a MagSafe specific charger, it actually is a 15-watt charger, so it'll charge faster. Qi charging, it supports only up to 7.5 watts with the new iPhone 12s. And again, across the board, this is I think one of the brilliant parts of this announcement was all 4 of these phones share much more in common than they are different. That things like MagSafe and 5G, they're not cutting corners. All of them have it.
And it takes a little bit, and boy, this would take us down a whole nother avenue, but it takes a little bit out of the sting of not having a charging cable in the box.
Well, there's a charging cable. There's not a charger.
Yes,
or earpods.
Charger. Yes, charger.
Okay, so this, I have to say, I'm a little annoyed at Apple because they did something which is absolutely correct. They should have done it, and but they should have done it a little differently. What they did is they took the little boxy charger that you plug into the wall and the earpods, the lightning-based earpods that used to ship with every iPhone, and they got rid of them. They're not in the box anymore. Now, this is a great idea in many ways because how many of those little boxy chargers do you have? I probably have 10 of them. I really don't need any more. And you can even get much better chargers if you want. You can also charge your iPhone from your Mac in a USB port, things like that. So really, we didn't need more chargers. And the same with the earpods. You've got a set you like. You probably don't need another set of earpods. You prefer a third-party one. You prefer your wireless AirPods, whatever. get rid of them. Stop making them. Stop creating electronic junk that we all have to have in our houses and then have in our landfills. And I thought this was really fascinating. Well, first of all, the best part was they had the VP in charge of this, someone named Lisa Jackson, on the roof of Apple Park. She looked a little nervous, I have to say.
I wondered if that was like CG or a green screen until I saw her hair blowing, and then the camera pulled away and showed her standing there.
Yep. And we're thinking, wow, they did a really good job of getting rid of the wind noise, you know, because she's on top of this building. It's a really big building. But the other thing that she said that I thought was really fascinating was by eliminating those two pieces, they were able to redesign the box that the iPhone comes in now, the iPhone 12 boxes, to make them 70% smaller, which 70% smaller means, or I shouldn't say that. They redesigned them so they can fit 70% more of them on a pallet. That's the way to phrase it. But what that means is that it's much more efficient to ship these things. Right. It saves Apple money. It saves, you know, on the environmental side of things. I mean, they ship, you know, tens and millions of these things. So it's, you know, it actually saves actual on the carbon on the transportation side of things. It is a total win-win. And it saves Apple money making them, and, you know, making and shipping all that. The only thing it doesn't do is save us any money. You know, the customer doesn't actually win in this.
They didn't have to raise the price.
They didn't. And to be fair, they did drop the price of the Earpods by $10. So they used to be $29, now they're $19. So if you want to buy a pair of Earpods, the wired earbuds, you can save $10. So that's nice. So that was good. But yeah, it felt a little, I don't know, a little self-serving. Like, I mean, yes, we all want the environmental side of it too, but Apple could have been environmentally conscious and nice to their customers at the same time. Now, again, to be fair, you have to get that money. I mean, the amount of money Apple puts into the environment is insane, and this is partly where they're getting it. So, you know,
one thing
comes out in the wash, I guess.
One thing with the MagSafe charger, it almost leads a little more credence to the thought that the next iPhone won't have any ports on it because you don't need to plug a charger in anymore.
Not inconceivable.
I want to jump in here. Steve, on that point, I thought it was very interesting when they were talking about the iPhone 12 Pros and Pro Max's capabilities. If you, especially video, not just the still photography, but the video, if you looked, there was an adapter plugged in to each one of those that they were showing that then let the video go out to someplace. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing like something next time around, call it the iPhone 13. If the iPhone 13 has no ports, but the iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max have that port.
Or actually have USB-C.
Yes, to truly differentiate it as a Pro device intended for pros.
Because if you're shooting, I mean, the level of video these things can shoot, it's just amazing. But you're shooting that kind of video, even a 512 gig device, you're gonna chew up that space pretty quickly. So yes, they're gonna want to at least be able to dump stuff off much more quickly than you could via wireless in many cases.
The other change that might upset some people is, yes, there's a power cord, charging cord in the box, but it's lightning to USB-C. Yeah. So if you have an old Mac, now you got to get an adapter. But if you have a new Mac, you don't need the adapter.
But again, probably most everyone has the USB-A adapter, USB-A cables. I mean, I've got a bag of them sitting around. So whereas I actually only have one or two lightning to USB-Cs. So I think everyone's going to be unhappy with some decision. But I was pleased that they if Apple had just said, "Oh, we don't think you need the power brick and the Earpods anymore," we took them out, that would have been obnoxious. The fact that they at least said, "Hey, look, the reason why we're doing this, the key reason is that it saves a vast amount of environmental crud." Okay, there's a certain level of I'm willing to make a few compromises there pretty happily. I did write a Tidbits article not long ago about the Apple's environmental report for 2020, which they came out with not all that long ago. And it's worth reading. It's a 99-page PDF, very well designed, very easy to read, outlines what the company is doing, and it is impressive beyond belief. I mean, I strongly encourage people to go read this if you're interested in environmental issues at all, because the amount of money and time and just thought that Apple is putting into this is really welcome. Too few organizations in the world, particularly of Apple's size, are doing this.
And I heard the announcements, and I've heard all the discussions too. And I feel like, Adam, sort of what you said, it's a win-win. I think you're serving both masters. You can, if depending on how jaded you are in one direction or the other, you can say, oh, well, Apple just did it to save money, or, oh my God, Apple's trying to save the planet. I think the truth is somewhere in between, that it serves both. And, how many people does it, honest to God, really inconvenience? Because we all have chargers. We probably have headphones or earphones that are not the Lightning ones that we prefer over what Apple was putting in the box.
And anyone needs a cable or a charger, let me know. Just saying. We it's not even just that we have them. It's just like everyone we know has them, and I'm sure that anyone who doesn't have one, I'll be happy to give you. I've got 5 extra. So, it's gonna work out. But you make a point, Chuck, here, which is I think this is something that I think Apple's environmental report does clarify, is that the best way to do this stuff is to do things that are good for the environment and save money simultaneously, because it's just really hard to convince business to do good things that are good for the environment if it costs some money. But if you can say, hey, if you do this green thing and it's going to save you money in the long run, that's a much easier decision for the bean counters to make, who couldn't care less about the environment, while the people who care about the environment, know that they aren't going to get it passed if it has too high a cost.
One thing that the rumors didn't get right is it doesn't look like it's a braided cable in the box from the pictures. No. I have so many more frayed cables than I do good working cables that I could use another cable.
They do seem to wear out. I'm always a little surprised by that. It's like, really, why does it wear out? But yeah. I don't have any of the fancy braided cables because I have so many of them, and when one wears out, I throw it away and just pull a new one out of my box. But
well, what we find a lot in our stores, people don't realize that has a warranty on it too, 1-year warranty from the original purchase. So if it's less than a year, and if you have Apple Care, it's covered by Apple Care. So don't just throw them out; get another one.
Yeah, and put a little tag on as to which one you bought when. That'll help you identify.
So there's a couple more things about MagSafe that I wanted to comment on, though. Apple said there's 2 sensors in there. There's a magnetometer and an NFC chip, near field communication. And I don't quite know what those are for yet, but the company was really clear about how this is an ecosystem of accessories. And so I'm really wondering if there's going to be a little bit more capabilities that things can have when you're connected via MagSafe. That who knows what. I mean, I don't quite know what it will enable. But it was an interesting announcement for Apple to make, that it wasn't just we've got this magnet here.
It's on the tech specs I just read there. They call it an Accessory Identification Nfc. So when you plug in an accessory, it will tell if it's made for iPhone and will work or not. Now that you're not plugging things in, you still have to pay that MFI tax as a manufacturer. I bet that's what
tax, but it's also it also probably is a bit of a security thing.
Yeah.
Because Apple then knows who's touching the iPhone. I mean, obviously anyone can make the magnety thing, but if you can't authenticate yourself, that might be a thing of difference. The other thing I have to say is, I have one of the wallet cases where it holds a couple of cards in the back, and I really like this. Although these days I go out so little, I feel sort of silly having my driver's license and credit card with me at all times in the house. And so one of the things that Apple has, and I'm sure there'll be a bazillion of these, is a card wallet that just slaps on the back. It's magnets, and it just slaps on the back. We hope it doesn't erase mag stripes. I mean, it's a little bit of a question there. But nonetheless, I would love that. I mean, that strikes me as the best of both worlds, where it's something that when you leave the house, just like you'd grab a wallet, you could just slap this thing on the back of your phone and have it all in one piece again, without having to be carrying it around with you all the time in your house. So, but in any event, I'm really looking forward to see what happens with MagSafe. Even Apple mentioned how Belkin was going to be producing chargers for it pretty soon. So I think it's going to be super popular with the accessory crowd.
Yeah. Steve, how are we doing on time?
Oh, we're fine.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
We often take a break when we're physically meeting to go have cookies and coffee, but people are welcome to get up and go get that yourself.
BY-own cookies.
Yeah.
All right.
Where are those virtual brownies I heard about?
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Oh, brownies.
Yeah.
I haven't had dinner yet. I'm getting hungry.
Do you think is it still pop? Is it still necessary to buy a screensaver for these new?
Oh yeah, talk about that crystal stuff.
Good question. So what Doug's commenting on is that Apple made a big deal about they have a new these iPhone 12 models, again, all of them, have a new front glass made out of a substance that Apple's calling ceramic shield. It's a new crystalline glass produced in conjunction with Corning. I always sort of like it when Corning is mentioned because, I mean, I know Corning is a big international company and everything, but I still see them as being in Corning, New York. I don't know if that's actually where they make these glass, but I was like, it feels like it's local to us. So, but in any event, so yeah, this crystal shield front glass, Apple claimed that it was up to 4 times less likely to crack if you dropped. And I'm sure Apple does tests, but man, I don't know how you really test that. I mean, the problem is Apple's going to have to test in a very standard way for a test to mean anything, whereas we don't drop our phones in standard ways. We drop them accidentally all the time. So it'll be a real question as to see how that holds up. I have no doubt that it'll be better, but I don't want to personally ever experience it myself.
They probably made a robot.
Apple?
Yeah.
Would you go Apple Care? Would you go Apple Care on that, Adam? On the new phone?
I probably on an iPhone, yes, I probably would. And I have varying policies in Apple Care. So I always get Apple Care on laptops. I get Apple Care on phones. I do not get it on iPads. I do not get it on Apple Watches. I do not get it on desktops. And it's a little bit of a personal thing, but I just I don't tend to carry an iPad around with me a lot, so the likelihood that I would hurt it seems pretty low.
On the converse, the Apple Care for the iMac is so inexpensive relatively, you might as well get it. But they just made a change to the Apple Care policies in the last couple of weeks. It used to be 2 incidents in your Apple Care period. Now it's 2 incidents per year.
Oh, wow.
So on your 3-year Mac coverage, you can get 6 incidences. And we've had people break their phone twice in a month.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem with breaking your phone is it's as likely as it is to happen at every moment, right? It's like every time you touch it, you're likely to break it. If you're that sort of person. There was
some celebrity caught on camera the other day with a cracked iPhone, and people were teasing him for having a cracked iPhone, and he was saying, oh, I can still use it. What's the big deal?
Oh, they were praising him, not teasing him. They're praising him for being a down-to-earth guy that didn't have to go out and
didn't just buy a new one
every opportunity.
2 different articles from different sources.
Yeah. So the other thing that I would like to note is that the huge change in this, and I'm super happy about, is Apple went back to the squared off flat edges of the in the industrial design, which we haven't seen again since that first generation Apple iPhone SE, and I love those flattened edges. I mean, and Apple has moved there with the iPad Pro and the most recent iPad Air, but it's just they're so much easier to hold on to. That the really curvy edges that they've had for so long. The only reason I never had a case until I got this until Apple went to these smooth round edges, and because they're just so much harder to hold on to. You get a little bit of a, even just the chamfered edge that they put on the square, on the flat butts, makes it a whole lot easier. So so I think that's going to be a good thing, and might not need a case for every day because you feel less likely to drop it.
Adam, do you think that's the result of Johnny Ive not being there, just to
So.
thin out the edge?
I really don't know, but I do feel like, I kind of felt like I don't want to say he was phoning it in because that's not right. I felt like there was more attention being paid to form than function, particularly towards the end. And, I mean, yes, I love the look of all my Apple devices too, but it's got to work. And, there's some things like, not being able to change out RAM and 21-inch iMacs. Like, oh, come on, that's just so annoying. And making the curvy edges or making them the slippery. There's been also different types of materials Apple's used over the years that have been more slippery. And
hockey puck mouse.
Yeah, well, enough said. I mean, come on, the hockey puck mouse. Yeah, really. So right, but I do feel like there's a little bit of a change there, but I don't know if I don't know enough I don't have any inside information as to say whether that's really the case or not.
It feels like you have to ask the question, given the change in iPad design, change in now phone design. What else are we going to see that maybe is not as quite as sleek as before, but seems to be a lot more serviceable and a lot more usable?
Yeah, so. Yeah. We can hope.
Yeah.
Function needs to roll there too.
Yeah.
So,
Adam, how do you feel? And I mean, we've been talking obviously mainly about the iPhone 12, but Apple has a nice stable of iPhones of all descriptions and sizes, and most importantly, price points.
Yes.
And I think this is really, really good, because now just about anybody, I mean, if the economics are a challenge, you can still get into the iPhone ecosystem.
Yeah. So this was interesting because I actually built a table for the article we did about this, covering the different prices. And it is fascinating. I was working so hard yesterday. I missed the iPhone 11, which is still in the lineup for a little while. But you got the iPhone SE at $399, the iPhone XR 10R at $499, the iPhone 11 at $599, the iPhone 12 Mini at $699 with an asterisk. And we'll get back to the asterisk. The iPhone 12 at $799, and those are all 64 gig. So it's this even ramp up. Just all the way across the board, which is really nice. And I have to say, I'm glad to see the SE. I am actually pretty fond of that iPhone SE at $399. I think that's a nice little phone for a really competitive price. I mean, that's exactly what Tanya got, and she loves it. Has a current processor, all that kind of stuff. So the asterisk is the question. I do not. I mean, maybe Steve's heard something here, but basically, there's a $30 tax if you're not an AT&T or Verizon customer with an iPhone 12 or 12 Mini. They are either $699 or $729, or $799 and $829. And I mean, there must have been some deal with AT&T and Verizon to have this $30 discount, but it feels a little sneaky on Apple's part to be advertising a price that you only get if you're also an AT&T or Verizon customer.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that. No.
Yeah, it's just weird.
I was just looking at maxing out the price. The iPhone 12 Pro Max with the 512 storage is only $13.99.
Yeah, it's actually not, and it's not that insane. I mean, one of the things that looking at the chart that I built brought home was you can really kind of zero. I mean, you really go from $399 to $13.99, and so if as long as you're in that realm, you can probably find a phone that's going to really meet your needs. They have a lot of options in there. I was also really happy with the storage options. Much happier than in the past, because this iPhone 11 Pro is a 256 gig model, because Apple only last time had 64 yeah, 64, 256, 512, I think it was. And I'm like 80 gigabytes of storage, is what I currently have. And so I couldn't get the 64. I mean, even if I could winnow it down, I'd be always bouncing across the ceiling. So I had to go to the 256. And I was like, well, that's stupid. Now I'm not using vast amounts of space. But now the iPhone 12 and 12 mini have 64, 128, or 256. So the one of those three is going to work for you, guaranteed. And the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max start at 128 and give you 256 and 512 options. So to my mind, that makes sense. Like there's no more weird ones, you know, a Pro one that's too small, and and you've got plenty of choices if you're not, you know, if you're sort of in the middle of one of those ranges. So kudos to Apple on that one as well.
Adam, I wanted to ask you this early, and this is a question just for you. But of all people, why aren't you on the upgrade program so that you can get the latest every
I'm
year?
cheap. That's why, Chuck. No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's simple.
No, so the real problem is that we hand phones down, and we keep phones. So historically, when Tanya was working on Tidbits more, what would happen was I would get like, you know, the iPhone 4, and then she would get the 4S, and then I would get the 5, and she would get the 5S. So that was our model. And then once our son Tristan was old enough to have a phone, which happened very quickly, he started running cross country in 7th grade, and it became clear instantly that he had to have a phone. In that first year, we bought him some, like, you know, $15 flip phone, because he had to be able to text to get pickups after cross country meets and practices. But the next year it became clear that it just made more sense to give him an old iPhone. So he got the 3rd one down. And so we've had this kind of process all along, except that it broke when the phones got big, and because Tanya refused to upgrade. She was like, she tried an iPhone. She tried when it was her turn to get the iPhone 10, she refused. She tried it for a week or two, and it's like, nope, I hate it. Absolutely detest it. Not going to use it. So Tristan Tristan has the iPhone 10 now, which is a better phone than he would have otherwise been in line for. At some point when he was in high school, he did come to us a little plaintively. It's like, I'm never going to get a new iPhone, am I? And we're like, nope, sorry, not until you buy it yourself. We'll give you a hand-me-down one for free, but you're never getting a new one. So that's a simple reason, Chuck. And also, you know, like I do have this iPhone 7 sitting here, and this was my iOS 14 test device. So, you know, it's worth something to me to have old phones around, either running old versions of the operating system sometimes, or being able to use them as test devices. So your question is actually entirely reasonable, and I've thought maybe now that Tanya's not quite in the upgrade scenario so much, and Tristan's 21 and will be buying his own iPhone soon and all that, maybe with the next one or two I would actually do that. Because yes, it would be nice to be able to just get myself an iPhone 12 mini and have it not taking up so much room in my pockets.
Well, and it's, you know, I think it's not a bad deal if you care at all about, you know, and not, I don't know, and the folks here, but I don't feel like I have to have the latest and greatest, you know, just to have the latest and greatest. But every time now for a lot of generations, they always add something that, yes, I can use that. And it's not just a matter of, okay, I mean, all the trillions of calculations in my pocket. Yeah, that's kind of fun to think about, as, you know, what's going on down there. But
oh no, we don't want to think about that, Chuck.
You know, down, Adam, down. But you know, with the camera differences, with Face ID, you know, all those were things that, yeah, I really want those. I can use those. They make a day-to-day difference to me.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm on the upgrade program, and I absolutely think it's a great deal.
Well, now here's a question for you, because I haven't looked into this, but like, does it make sense? So I would have been paying for the upgrade program for an iPhone 11 Pro. If I wanted to go to an iPhone 12 mini, that would be much cheaper. Would that change what I'm doing, or?
It's a great question, and I don't know that I've seen that addressed anywhere.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
I haven't seen any information on giving me a chart of, okay, I have an 11 Pro, I'm probably going to go with the 12 Pro Max. What's going to be my differential?
Right. Are you going to have to pay more? I mean, it all makes sense that you would have to, but
Sure.
I've never heard about that changing stuff. Anyway, good question
Right.
for that program. I mean, in some ways, it gets back to this whole concept of like renting everything, right? I mean, you can do it with cars now, where you just like, I'm paying you, X $100 a month, and I have a car. And and I can, I'm tired of this car, I want a different car. You can do that, I mean, within certain realms. But I mean, if you just see these things as ongoing expenses rather than as objects that you invest in and then amortize over time, it's not an incorrect way about looking at it, it's just a different way.
Some of it's because the things have gotten so expensive. Your car payment used to be $300 a month, and you owned the car. Yeah. Now suddenly you lease it for $300 a month, and you don't own the car, because to buy it would be $500 a month. Yeah. Same thing on phones. People were complaining when the first phone started hitting $1,000 or more. Well, not people, the pundits and the press.
Well, people were too. But
well, people are seeing $20 a month. Well, I got $20 a month. I'll get the new phone.
Yeah. Well, and it was. I mean, for so long we were deceived by all the carrier contracts.
Yeah.
The phones cost $200, and you needed the carrier contract anyway. So like, it wasn't as though you could get away without having a contract. So you didn't. It just seemed like the phones got more expensive. I mean, realistically, I guess the carrier contracts got cheaper, and when they unbundled the phones. But I don't know. It somehow didn't feel like that.
Yeah, but you could get away with just using an iPod Touch and not getting the phone. And then you didn't have a contract.
You were a diehard, weren't you?
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's just, it is interesting to look, because you jump on one bandwagon or the other, and if you're not looking at all the bandwagons that are out there, you really are doing yourself a disservice, depending on how you use your phone and how important it is to you. So
yeah. I mean, in the end, what it really comes down to is that these are just gorgeous phones, and
new colors.
I mean,
new colors.
Yeah. New colors. Yes. I'm loving the blue. Let me tell you, both the blue actually in both the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 Pro, they're different blues, and they're both gorgeous. Tanya got a product red for her iPhone SE, and she's like, I need the clear case now, because this is a beautiful phone. I do not want to hide my beautiful red phone. I'm not personally wild about the green. The green's a little sherbety to me, but hey.
The midnight green last year was kind of nice.
Yeah, the midnight green was kind of cool. But yeah, the new colors are great. Just overall, these are great phones, and the only thing I think they suffer from is just that it's not like the last year's phones or most of the phones before that there's anything wrong with them. And so there is I think some of the upgrade decisions are getting a little harder or just become, oh, I want it. I don't need it. There's nothing really wrong with it, but I want it. And that's the only problem. The only thing that we were hoping to see, which was just kind of fantasy wish list, was the way Apple did Touch ID in the top button on the 4th generation iPad Air, which we haven't seen yet. I mean, keep in mind, it hasn't shipped yet, so we don't know if it works, but it seemed like a great idea. And I would have loved to see Apple try to build the Touch ID sensor into the side button on these phones, or maybe give them a top button again. I much prefer the top button to the side button, because the side button, I mean, it's a real problem, because whenever you squeeze the sides, you also change the volume. I mean, you can't easily just squeeze with one finger. I mean, you can, but I'm always making the mistake. Whereas with a top button, it just was much easier. So I have to assume, again, there's probably something. It's the camera. That's the problem. The camera's in the way. They can't do the top button anymore.
Yeah. Or you take a screenshot when you squeeze it.
Of either a photo of your fingers,
Yeah. I've got a lot of those.
So, but yeah, I mean, the Touch ID would have been nice again for this year of mask wearing, but I have to assume that the engineering abilities there, just was just too much in too short a time. Because I mean, let's face it, Apple had to have this thing designed in February. I mean, this the hardware doesn't like this doesn't come out overnight.
Yeah, that's the, I think that's the perfect point, Adam. That because I know I've seen a number of discussions about that. Why didn't they put this here, especially during COVID-19? And it's like, well, if we had COVID-19 earlier, then maybe they'd had time to respond. But I have to wonder, okay, how much more would it cost to make a Face ID and Touch ID, and then let that be a user selectable setting?
Yeah, or just whatever worked. Yeah,
there was something in one of the analyst calls about Apple had insurance against natural disasters in their product supply chain, so they weren't hit as bad as some other companies who didn't. In fact, I read Wimbledon had insurance, and so Wimbledon got a $10 million payout this year because they had insurance in case the match was canceled.
Wow. Amazing stuff. Yeah, I mean, actually, what I'm willing to bet that Apple is doing research into Face ID with masks, and two reasons. One is because, I mean, everyone's wearing masks, for now. Why wouldn't they be at least looking into it? Could they get enough facial information with a mask to still have Face ID work effectively? But the other one is that in Asia, people wear masks a lot even before COVID-19. This is not a new thing for large chunks of the world, and when people are out in public, and so I have to believe that it's something that Apple would like to be able to do. They do pretty well with sunglasses and hats and things, so probably they're focusing more on the lower part of the face normally, but maybe they can tweak that to focus on the upper part of the face some more, and still bring Face ID to a mask possibility.
Couldn't they use like a retinal ID?
The way again, the amount of technology they put in here, maybe. I don't know. I forget the numbers. Wasn't like it's like 30,000 beams of light that they use for Face ID or something like that. I mean, again, just mind-boggling that they can do this kind of stuff. So
the LiDAR sensor can see through the mask and get your facial structure.
Precisely. I mean, right? There's just there's all sorts of things that like you do not want to bet against the geeks these days. My best example of this, and this is actually several years old, so I mean, it hasn't actually happened, but I saw a research paper from University of Washington's computer science department. They had figured out how to have a person be able to control playback of music. So it wasn't a lot of commands. It was like, more volume, less volume, stop, start kind of things. By waving your hands in the air, and what they did was evaluate how you interrupted the Wi-Fi signals in the room.
Yep.
Just by moving your body around, and in a particular way. And I was sort of like, okay, this really hits, Arthur C. Clarke's, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I mean, when you can say, turn off the music by waving your hand, and detect that by, I interrupted the Wi-Fi signals that just happened to be there. Magic. It's just magic.
Well, Samsung had a phone a couple of years ago where they were doing that, where you could just swipe your hand across it to turn pages on a website, and that disappeared. They don't talk about that feature anymore.
Samsung's more of the throw stuff against the wall and see if it sticks. And a lot of their stuff, honestly, I think it doesn't stick. Part of the problem is, and this is what Apple does well, actually, is a lot of Samsung stuff doesn't stick because they do it badly. Like, that isn't a bad idea, but I'll bet they implemented it badly, just like their foldable phone was implemented badly. And then people think, well, that's just a stupid gimmick, or it doesn't work, or it breaks, or whatever. And, so, you have to assume Apple's looking at all this stuff too. They're just being very careful about what they implement.
On the Mac, you can use facial gestures and hand gestures to control certain features. People don't know about it.
Yeah, it's accessibility.
But you can do it. I mean, it's kind of useless, but I mean, it can work for you if you're doing some things that you just want to raise your hand or smile, and it will do a task.
Yeah.
Now, there's not that many tasks, but the
So
Mac does have that.
So if you want to find this, I never wrote an article about it. I tested it. It didn't quite work super well. And this is mostly for people who obviously are mobility challenged in some form or fashion. If you go into System Preferences, Accessibility, and then scroll down to Pointer Control, and then there's a button for alternate control methods, you can enable alternate pointer actions and also enable head pointer. And if you click those options buttons, like the head pointer, basically the camera can be looking and tracking the pointer to where you look, which is super cool. It turns out to not actually be very useful if you can actually use a mouse or a trackpad or something normally. And then the alternate pointer options, you can define anything you want. So you could say, for instance, when I open my mouth, left click. When I smile, double click. So again, very impressive stuff, but not the way we think about doing all this right now. So I'm really mostly aimed at folks who simply need it because they can't do anything else. But you see these like the Avengers movies where they get the wall of the virtuals displays and they're like flinging stuff around. I think it's a terrible interface, but it's the kind of thing where we start to see that working with these cameras watching us and then reacting, it's going to be a thing at some point. That we can detect a lot of that kind of stuff.
And it looks cool on TV.
Yes. Yeah,
Adam,
Larry.
could you elaborate a little bit on something being introduced, but I think what was the term you said, implemented poorly?
Well, so basically, Andy Ihnatko made this analogy long ago, which is that Apple is a sharpshooter. So Apple, even for the product levels, Apple picks something, call it maybe 5G or MagSafe or something like that, and they make sure they do it really well. And they make a big deal about it, and they focus on, relatively few things at a time. In fact, that the iPhone 12 was a fair amount in terms of MagSafe and 5G and some of the camera technology. Whereas a lot of other companies, and Samsung's notable among them, they have great engineers, don't get me wrong, and they can do wonderful things, but it feels like they're just throwing things against the wall and seeing if anything catches people's attention. And it's not necessarily a bad way to see, to what's going to happen, because we don't know what people are going to love, right? Apple's certainly come out with features that people didn't love, and it's easier to see in software sometimes. Like Launchpad on the Mac, not a big thing. They thought, everyone wanted to be like the iPhone. No, it turns out most Mac users didn't. Some people use it; it's there, but not a big thing. And there's certainly plenty of others, Finder tabs, even Mission Control. Mission Control can do a vast amount more than most people ever do. But what I think Samsung and the like do is they sort of test market against real products. So rather than doing all their testing in secret, which is what Apple does, and product design in secret, and then ship. Samsung will basically just ship and then see what people think.
Yeah, they might come out with 20 new phones in a year, each with slightly different features.
Yeah, like they did it with the folding phone, remember?
Yeah. Now that said, Microsoft has now come out with a folding phone that I've heard. I think it actually doesn't work very well, unfortunately. But like Joanna Stern, the Wall Street Journal reviewed it. I did a video review of it, and she's like, the hardware is actually really good. That the a lot of it, the usage pattern and the hardware and all that actually works pretty well. The problem was that as an actual device, it didn't work very well. That it was really, really buggy. And so, but that's the kind of thing that you can't do. And Apple, well, I shouldn't say you can't do. You can do, but I don't think it's as an effective a sales and marketing approach. I think it's better to pick your one or two things and really get them as right as you possibly can, and then plug the hell out of them.
See, what's happening is people aren't looking at science fiction closely enough. There's a lot of sci-fi shows where the phone is at, it pulls out of a cylinder and then slides back in. And a rolling screen would be much easier to make than a folding screen.
Oh yeah, you go get right on that, Steve. Please.
Yeah.
We all want our rolling screens.
Well, we're getting, there's been a lot of stuff done with digital paper. I don't think it's ever quite hit, but all this stuff. I had a general thought. I'll share this with you. I think we all say, "Oh man, life used to be simpler," and it did. It's absolutely true that life was simpler, and it always has been simpler in the past, because life, what we call it, basically obeys evolutionary principles. And in evolution, organisms become more complex. And the world it follows that exactly. So yeah, it used to be a lot easier to do certain things on a Mac because the Mac couldn't do nearly as much. And the only corollary to that is that sometimes things are easier to do because we put so much effort into the back end to make the front end simple. And so the front end seems very simple, but as soon as anything goes wrong in the back end, good luck. Cars used to be much simpler, but they aren't Teslas. A Tesla is not the sort of car you can do things to because it's so much more complex than your 1964 Dodge Dart. So yes, I just dated myself as listening to car talk.
Adam.
But, yeah.
Speaking of Tesla, I drove a friend's Tesla the other day, and I asked about plugging in my phone.
Oh yeah.
And he said, "Oh no, you just sit it on the console and it charges."
Yep.
Is that true for any of the iPhones? Do you know?
It should be true for I can't think of how far back it
iPhone
goes.
8 and later.
8,
Yeah.
8, yeah. So that's
all the newer ones.
Yeah, that's going to be the Qi, or it's spelled QI, but it's pronounced Qi wireless charging standard. And yeah, and it's a good thing because you just put it in the right place and it works. I mean, one of the other things that Apple announced with iOS 14 and CarPlay, although it requires buying a new car, is that you'll be able to use your phone and your watch to actually unlock and start your car instead of a key.
Yes.
But as I understand it, because I do not have a brand new BMW, which is the only car that supports it at the moment, you actually have to put your phone in a particular spot to use it as a key. That's how it's authenticating in some way. I think to unlock, you can just go close to it with the watch. So we're waiting to see a little bit of how this works out, but yeah, there's going to be more and more of that kind of stuff, and I'm looking forward to it because I'm a runner, so I've always got one of these stupid key fobs to somehow carry with me while I'm running. I don't necessarily have good pockets, but I have a watch with me at all times. One
of the car companies has a commercial. Yeah, the dog keeps burying things in the front yard, and one of them is the car keys, and so the couple has to go somewhere, and good thing we have this whatever brand car it was, and they hold their phone up to the doorknob and it unlocks.
Yeah. Tesla does a great job with that sort of stuff. I don't have a Tesla, but I know some people who have Teslas, and it's definitely an app intensive car.
Well, we're ordering one of them, so in January or February, I'll let you know.
Oh, excellent! Which one are you getting?
The new one, is it the Y?
The Y, okay.
I think it's the Y.
Yeah.
It's a little SUV.
Yeah, okay. Very cool. Chuck, you don't know this stuff, but Rochester, as my understanding, just got a Tesla dealer quite recently, or Tesla room.
A repair center.
Repair center, yeah. Because the problem was that for the longest time, Ithaca, as people around here know, is other bumper stickers, is centrally isolated. So it was people who had Teslas in Ithaca had to drive 4 hours in multiple directions, to be able to get their cars repaired. And so friends of mine who have a Tesla just said that, yeah, the Rochester had one now, which Rochester's, less than 2 hours away. So like, yes, okay, Teslas just became a whole lot easier to get.
Yeah, it's over on the corner of West Henrietta and Jefferson. But
okay, cool.
You can't test drive one.
Just repair.
You can just look at them in the parking lot. There's some problem with New York State and the number of sites they had, so they can't do test drives there.
New York State is one of the worst for this. I did not realize, I once heard a podcast about it, I think, that there's these incredible laws that protect auto dealers.
You can't have a factory-owned dealer. It has to be an independent dealer.
Yeah. You have to buy the car online.
Yeah. Just nuts.
Yeah.
So,
well, Adam, can I ask you another question?
Sure.
AirPods versus AirPod Pro.
Oh.
You rated the quality of them, but I want to know how they stay in. My husband just had open heart surgery and he's starting cardiac rehab, and he wants to buy a treadmill or an exercise bike. And on his wish list, he had the AirPods. So I'm wondering if there's something better that would stay on, or whatever.
So I did a big comparison article about this in Tidbits. And if you
I
go
read
search,
it.
you read that. Okay, good. So what I think is fascinating about the AirPods and the AirPods Pro is that the AirPods, I actually think, stay in better and are more comfortable than the AirPods Pro. And that's because they have this slightly longer. I don't want to. I'm a little careful. I don't want to quite pull them out. I'm not quite sure what will happen when I do. Yeah, my computer already grabbed them. The AirPods have the longer stem. And which you can see, hey, look at Chuck's ears. Yeah. And what's interesting about the longer stem is you think, oh, that's not as good because it's sort of more obvious and it's like longer and going to overbalance. But what it turns out is it's one of those situations like you've seen those wine bottle holders where it's just like at a perfect angle. And the wine bottle, just like you're like, how does it stand there? Because it's at the perfect angle and the weight and everything.
Yeah.
That's how I feel the AirPods work. They're cantilevered perfectly, at least for my ears. In comparison, the iPads Pro, because they have those silicone plugs on them, which provides the passive noise cancellation, you got to kind of push them in. And so I wear those when I'm doing yard work because I can put them under ear protectors. They are small under ear protectors, which the AirPods are not. But they don't stay in very well. And I'm constantly having to, take my ear protectors off and like poke them into my ear canal more. And so I wish there was a way to test these because everyone's ears are different.
Right.
But that conclusion I came to was don't assume that the AirPods Pro are just better because they're more expensive. Their noise cancellation is amazing and wonderful. And if you really want noise cancellation, get them, no question. But as far as comfort goes, I like the AirPods Pro or AirPods better because one, they stay in better, and two, I don't get that like water in my ear feeling of having my ear canals blocked.
That was a very informative article you wrote.
Well, thank you. It was an unusual scenario. Just people who haven't seen the article, I had the AirPods, and my wife has AirPods as well, and she lost one of hers. And she knew it was in the house somewhere, and we went like a month and a half, 2 months, didn't find it. Finally, I said, look, I think we had like an Apple gift card or something. It's like, I'll get the AirPods Pro, and you can have my AirPods, because she really liked the AirPods and didn't want to even try the AirPods Pro. So we get the AirPods Pro. I use them for like a week or something, and then she's doing something, and she opens a drawer that she didn't normally use, and somehow the AirPod had fallen into this drawer. So we ended up with 2 sets of AirPods, and so I got to test back and forth, and I thought it was a really interesting opportunity because it's not something you really need to live with these things for a while. You can't just try them once in a store and sort of go, oh yeah, I know which one's I'm going to like. And so I tried to really suss out and explain the difference in way I felt about them. So yeah, if anyone was interested in them, they're both great, but do not discount the cheaper ones.
Have you tried the AirPods Pro without the rubber stuff on them?
You need to have the rubber stuff on them. There's 3 different sizes, and I've tried the different sizes, and I didn't really notice the difference. But yeah, I think they
Parts
would
in the
be
dark.
hard and uncomfortable without the rubber plug.
Adam?
Yeah.
There is an app for making your iPhone turn into a hearing aid.
Yes.
And you could set the iPhone near the speaker, and my father, who could hear very little, wore earplugs, and it helped him a lot.
Yeah.
Is there a way to do that with Earpods?
Yes, and in fact, it's even built into the
iPhone could actually be set up on a lectern.
On a lectern, yes, probably. So in fact, this is even built into iOS. It's a feature. If you go into control, you might have to add it in Control Center. I can't really, probably not be able to see it, but it's in Control Center. It's called Live Listen, and it's got a little ear icon. And basically, that's exactly what it does. Is it just turns on the microphone in the phone, and then sends the audio to the AirPods in your ears. My father has hearing problems as well, and I had him try it, and he liked it, but he didn't think he was going to be. He thought it would be too awkward to actually be like pointing his phone everywhere to listen to things. And he had some kind of Bose things that he was doing better than a
put the
hearing
phone. Just put it in your pocket, and it picks up so much room noise. It's really wonderful.
No, I thought that was brilliant. I've talked to people who use it and really like it. I haven't had a chance. I mean, my hearing's okay. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay enough that I haven't gone there yet. But some point perhaps. But I think that's one of those things that's just getting better and better. Well, how are we doing? Got to answer any more questions for folks? I think we've actually covered the bulk of all the iPhone stuff. Am I right, Chuck?
I would think so, Adam. And I'll ask you to wrap up with one question.
Okay.
Will we see another Apple event this year?
Yes.
Do you think?
Yes, I'm pretty sure we will. And the reason I think the reason we will is because we have two big announcements coming, and they're Mac. So we know that Apple wants to release an Apple Silicon Mac, and we know that Apple has to release Big Sur. So to me, that's got an Apple event written all over it.
Probably together.
And and there could be something else in there tossed in as well, like AirTags or who knows what as well. They do sometimes throw in the stuff that's a little bit off. But I mean, they're not going to want. I mean, if they've got a snazzy Apple Silicon Mac, I think they're going to want to show it off. And that might also be their opportunity to again change the industrial design. It won't just, it could, I mean, if I were Apple, I'd do this just to, again, make that little bit of a break so that, hey, this looks like a new Mac and this has got our chip in it and wow, isn't it great? So that's what I'd do if I were Apple, but I do think we'll see another one. It's not uncommon for them last November, they released the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So it's not uncommon for them to have a Mac announcement in November, I particularly with the fact they can do their own completely controlled announcements, I don't see why they wouldn't.
Yeah, I have to admit, I really hadn't. I thought about this Apple Silicon Mac, but I really hadn't thought about putting it in conjunction with Big Sur.
Yeah,
that would make a huge amount of sense.
Right. And it could very well be. I mean, just like so people know, like the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro, you can pre-order on Friday and get next week. The others are November 6th and get on the 13th, and they haven't even announced a date for the 4th generation iPad Air yet. So I think it would be entirely within Apple's realm to show off, say, in 3 weeks, I guess, beginning in November, to have an event where they show off the new Mac and Big Sur, where Big Sur ships immediately, and the new Mac is before the end of the year, or you can order it in December, kind of thing. So we may not be getting it much before the end of the year, but I'll bet they'll show it off before the end of the year. I mean, that's I'm putting my money on that.
I would wish that Apple would at least people put their own memory in. because
laptops, yeah, never going to happen with laptops. Desktops, yes.
yeah, I got the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and one of the drawbacks is, you know, you can't put in a new hard drive, you can't
Yep.
put in memory, and I'm just afraid with the new iMacs, you know, they already went with soldered in SSD for their 27-inch iMac. Whether they're
Well,
going to
it's
allow
not
people to
my
keep
understanding is
memory
it's
in
not
it.
soldered. So I mean, I have a 2020 that I have obviously haven't opened up. The problem with the iMac is that it's adhesive around the screen. You have to cut the screen off, and then to remove the SSD, it's on the back side of the motherboard. So you have to pull the motherboard off. It's a multi-hour job. But it is my understanding, at least in the earlier ones, it is a blade SSD, so it does plug into something. So it's not.
Well, with the iMacs up to the 2 terabyte, it is soldered in. The higher than 2 terabyte, they have the blade.
But part of the problem is that because the encryption is tied to the T2 chip, if you change the drive, you can't use the encryption. And so we've been reading that in the service manuals. You change the logic board, you have to do the Touch ID board too. You change the drive, you have to do the Touch ID board too.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the 27-inch iMac, at least you can upgrade RAM really easily. 21, not so much. And laptops at this point simply aren't going to be upgradable. It's like the iPhones. There's just too the engineering to get them to be as small as they are precludes opening them. Anything that you can open has to have engineering that goes into that and actual physical parts. I mean, if you go back and look at some of those old laptops that we had, you know, where there's the lever that you could pull and it would kind of eject the battery out the side. All that, you know, infrastructure, all that superstructure to be able to, you know, hold the battery and have the lever and all that added weight and size. And that's the kind of stuff Apple wanted to move away from. So I don't think we'll be seeing it. Plus, you know, as Steve points out, you know, when you bring the T2 chip in with the security stuff, and it just changes the whole ball game. But I do think that, you know, at least with the Mac Pro and the iMac, you know, we can at least get some of this kind of stuff manipulable again. Oh, well.
I do have. That's a wrap.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say to Adam, Ithaca got a shout out on some cop show I was watching. Two cops in the car were discussing his daughter got into Cornell, and they lived in California, so he really wanted her to go to UCLA, and so he was a little upset about moving halfway across the country. And the other cop said, "Well, I hear Ithaca is really nice this time of year." I said, "Wow, she knew Cornell and she knew it was in Ithaca."
Yeah,
Adam, it doesn't matter what user group we go to. You have a Cornell connection somewhere. I don't understand it.
Big university.
I guess.
We actually so the thing that Cornell's been in the news for a lot recently is that Cornell has the vet. We have a vet school for people who don't know, and it is the New York State Diagnostic Laboratory. So Cornell has the capacity to run 10,000 COVID-19 tests a day internally. And as a result, not actually, that's actually more than they need. They only need like 5,000 a day. But Cornell is testing every student twice a week and is testing faculty and staff, anyone who comes onto campus at least once a week, if not twice a week, sort of depends on your job if you're coming on. And they had a very brief spike after people came back, and that they basically found everybody. They traced the heck out of them. They stuffed them in the Statler Hotel. We have our own hotel because we have a hotel school, and to quarantine the heck out of them. And since then, we've had something like 8 cases. I mean, it's like 1 and 2 or 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 and 2. So it's been a huge success, and Cornell's been getting a lot of national press for this, and justifiably so. They got a shout out on Good Morning America. That was basically an infomercial, which has been kind of fun to see. So yeah, it's been good because Ithaca lives and dies by Cornell in a lot of cases because Cornell is so many. Well, it's 15,000-20,000 people, so it doubles our population. when it's in session. And so everyone was very worried when the students were going to be coming back, but Cornell had a plan and they implemented it and they followed through. So it's been really good to see.
That's great.
I just looked up Cornell people, and I see Ruth Bader Ginsburg is Cornell.
Yep. We've been getting a lot of alumni stuff with her.
Bill Nye, Bill Maher.
Bill Nye, the science guy. Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Toni Morrison.
Yeah. All sorts of Kurt Vonnegut. Yeah. Vladimir Nabokov. Sorry, we could do this all night.
Yeah. I was going to say, we'll just keep going here.
Well, you do realize my mother was Cornell University archivist. So it's not fair. I really do know this. I could talk about this for a long time. And if I had to stop, I'd get her to do it for the rest of the
Yeah. Well, I want to thank the Apple CIDER user group for having us. This has been a lot of fun. We covered a lot of ground, answered a bunch of questions. And so, folks, thank you very much.
And where can we find you, Chuck?
You can find me, and you will see this eventually on macvoices.com. I'll probably slice it up into a couple episodes to make it a little easier to get through, but I'll make sure that everything goes out, assuming that the recordings worked. That's always the big assumption.
And I've got 2 recordings here just in case.
Yeah. Well, I'll take yours first, but I do want to say something too, though, that during COVID, a lot of user groups have shut down and just said, we're not going to bother. You guys are still getting together, doing the virtual meeting thing, and it's clear that you have a very active membership. So good job. Please keep it up. Everybody. Great job.
Yep.
Great job.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And also thanks to Adam Engst. And you can put in your plug now.
Yeah, please.
Come and read my stuff on tidbits.com. We just killed ourselves yesterday to cover the HomePod Mini and the iPhone 12. So if you're looking for any more information about those, if we didn't cover, which I think we got pretty much everything, but if you want to see it written down.
Yes. I was a little worried when Apple announced that the date was October 13th, and oh my God, is Adam going to be able to? Can he still wake up? Do his hands still move?
Let me tell you, yesterday I actually had I coach running workouts too, and I actually had to leave at like 5:10 to go coach a workout, and then come back, and I was working until 9 o'clock. So it was just it's because again, so many details, and you're trying to make sure you get them right to the extent possible, and. Luckily, people are very understanding when you make mistakes and that kind of coverage. They're like, "Yep, I fixed it. Yep, I fixed it. Yep, I fixed it." Oh boy! Well, thank you all so much. It's been great being here. And hey, one of these days we'll get to do it in Rochester again.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks,
Looking
Adam.
forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the wrap up, folks. This is Mac Voices. I'm Chuck Joyner. We would love to virtually come to your mug too. If you still are working. But until then, and as always, thanks for watching. Thank you, guys. I have to tell you, we've done a number of these. I am really impressed by the participation across the board and the quality of questions. Yeah. Really, really impressive. Yeah. Good job.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Yeah. You must know these people pretty well, Adam.
So Rochester and Oneonta they're in my circle. They're within 2 hours. And so ever since I moved back to Ithaca, I've been making annual trips to Rochester and Oneonta. So those are my two regular ones. So yeah, I do. And I would always go up a little early. We'd get dinner, and but I don't see Dennis. Where's Dennis? Has he been coming to these things?
We saw him a few months ago. We haven't seen him since.
Yeah. So, so you start to get to know people pretty well when you see them over and over and over again.
Dennis got a real job and then can't play anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, he's working at what, Eastman
School.
Yeah. He was a consultant for a long time, Chuck, and was one of those people. I mean, he knows a ton of stuff and everything, but he has he has 4 kids, and 3 of whom are triplets.
Yeah.
So I think a real job at some point became really kind of a good idea.
Yeah. I have nightmares like that. Okay.
Hey, Chuck, I just wanted to say I saw one of your episodes when you're talking about the antitrust with the App Store.
Yes.
And you were getting a little frustrated with a couple of the people because they couldn't understand, your point of view, which I have the same kind of point of view is, hey, you don't want to play? You don't have to play in the sandbox with them.
That probably was the one with Brian Chaffin, who was championing that position. And Brian and I are great friends. We love to argue about this stuff, and he's usually wrong. So
Yeah.
He's not here, so he's definitely wrong.
definitely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had the hat on?
Yes.
He had the hat on? Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
All right, guys. I need to get some dinner, so I'm going to sign off.
Yeah.
but
Thanks
Okay.
a lot,
thank you
Adam.
so
Thank you,
much.
Adam.
Bye.
Take care, Adam.
Bye.
Yeah, Brian. If I respect Brian so much, because Brian is not one to make a mistake and then just try to gloss over it. He will throw it up and say, "Hey, I screwed up," and he's, I've seen him do it in well, not in print, of course, but on the web, on an article, and in person. But sometimes he sees things through a very different set of glasses than I do, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's great. That's what makes for some good discussion. So,
Yep.
But
So
yeah, thank you.
Where can we find you?
MacVoices.com is where right now I'm running at about one show per day. Trying to interview, either have a panel discussion or interview a developer or someone notable in the Mac community.
Okay, thank you.
Been doing this for 15 years. So, there's a lot of stuff. If you want to go back, it is kind of funny to go back and see some of the people we've talked to that have either disappeared from the scene or gone on to bigger, gone on to bigger and better things. So, yeah. So check it out. Hope you enjoy it.
We always joke about some of the Macworld staffers like Chris Breen and Serenity Caldwell who get hired by Apple and you never hear from them again.
Yep.
Because they're not all. At least we know the new Apple manuals are being written by Chris Breen. And
yeah. Yeah, if you dig back, you can see sort of the farewell show that I did with Chris when he got hired. Of course, we all knew where he was going, but he couldn't say it outright. And since then, he just can't.
We had him speak at CIDER a couple of times over the years.
Yeah, great guy, super intelligent. And I feel like Apple obviously got stronger because of him, but yeah, once that curtain comes down, boy, I mean, it does not come back up.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for having us. This was a lot of fun. I hope we get to do it again.
Sure. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll probably stick around.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody, take care. I'm out of here. Go and talk amongst yourselves.
All right.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, hey, Steve, before I do go, I don't know if you have a Dropbox or whatever. If you can let me have your recordings, that'll be great. I'm going to test mine and see how, but I have an idea yours will be better because of the recording in the cloud thing.
Okay.
I think it's out on YouTube, right?
Well, yeah, we are streaming straight into YouTube, but I'll figure out a way to get you the Zoom recording too.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
All right.
Please stay safe.
Yep. You too.
You too.
Bye.
Go back
Right,
to
John.
gallery mode. Here we are. So I guess we can take any other cues and we'll see if we have any A's that weren't necessarily covered specific by the Apple products.
Hey, it looks like
I don't have a question, but
Doug showed up.
I just want to alert you. There was on CBS Sunday Morning last Sunday, they had a full feature on the right to repair movement. David Pogue was in it and some others, and it was worth looking up. It's on YouTube, just right to repair movement.
It's kind of interesting because it's been Kevin Weeks at iFixit who's been one of the big proponents of that. And there's a little bit of self-serving involved because he owns a company that sells parts and service tools, so he's trying to make sure that his business stays around. But one of the problems I've run into is people that try to fix their own computers and then break it so much worse, and then bring it into us and are shocked by how much it's going to cost to fix. So I'm all for the right to repair, but don't try to do something you're not quite sure how to do.
They did not limit it to computers, so they were like John Deere.
Yeah, that's the funny part is John Deere tractors and Apple computers are the two big companies that they're going after for trying to get repair manuals, service guides. There's DRM in tractor components, so you have to buy components from John Deere in order to repair your tractor.
So do they repair tractor beam devices?
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
Probably.
And a lot of people liken it to the car laws, where third-party companies can make parts for cars. You don't have to buy Ford parts to put in a Ford car. Yeah, go ahead, George. Was that you? Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question, Steve. I remember years ago when I was on AppleCare for Apple, at one time AppleCare, and I'm not sure if it's still true. If you had AppleCare and you had an iMac for whatever reason, say it was too heavy for you, you were handicapped in some way, that Apple would come to your house for an iMac repair. Okay, and that's part of the AppleCare agreement. Okay, it's too heavy, whatever, you don't want to do it, you can't put it in your car, whatever the reason was, you just call AppleCare and they will arrange to have a service technician come to your house and resolve the problem. If it's parts, they take care of the parts. And the reason I asked this because I used to set up the calls on AppleCare, and I had one fella, this lady, she lived about a 2-hour boat trip away from Alaska. Alaska.
Wow.
She was some island off the coast of Alaska. It's a 2-hour boat trip each way. Some weird thing, okay? And I called up the tech and I said, could you handle the call? And he said, you've got to be kidding. He said, it's going to take me an hour to get to the boat, a 2-hour trip out, a 2-hour trip back, and then back to the office. And what happens if she needs a part? And I said, I'm going to have to pass this on to a senior advisor.
Go, guys.
I mean, it was like the guy said, it's an all-day trip, and you're not going to give me X dollars an hour for the trip. So he said, I'm going to come out losing money on this. He said, I just can't do it. So anyway, is that still covered on AppleCare?
Yeah, hang on a minute. Matthew's trying to call me. I thought I had that muted.
Okay.
On desktop Macs, iMacs, yes, they still do offer on-site, but you have to be within a certain range of a. Hang on a minute. You have to be in a certain range of an Apple store or Apple reseller, but for laptops, for laptops and phones, they have you ship it in. Displays can be shipped in. We will generally try to avoid doing computers on site because of the part issue. Yeah, you go on site, you diagnose the problem, you go back to the office, order the part, you go back out, try to install, and you got to take all your tools, your anti-static mat, your everything, and then Apple pays you $20 for the service call. So we try to avoid it, even though Apple still does offer that. What we have started doing more is pick up and delivery service, especially during COVID. We can pick up and deliver, or people will put the computer in the trunk and then we'll go out to the parking lot and get it. Yeah. But partly because more laptops are being sold, it's a direct ship to Apple is also available. Although we often hear from people who've brought their, especially during COVID, people from Syracuse and Binghamton were driving all the way in, expecting to have their computer fixed instantly because Apple didn't tell them that it's a process and we have to order parts and whatnot. So you got to make 2 trips. And Apple didn't tell them they could ship their laptop to the Apple Repair Center where it would get fixed and shipped back. And part of that we think is because Apple tells them it will be 3 to 5 business days. Well, I can't be without my computer for 5 days. Well, it's usually not 5 days, but people don't want to be without their computer for an hour. So then they bring it in and they sit in a parking lot for 2 hours while we diagnose the problem. Tell them we have to order the part, and it will be 2 or 3 days for the part to come in. So they are going to have to come back again.
Of course, automobile shops will give a loaner in the meantime.
Yeah, the problem is the loaner comes out of our pocket, and if you damage the loaner, then we have to pay for it. We did work with a rental company for a while where you could rent a computer. It was like $200 a week, and nobody wanted that. And from a lot of times what I've seen lately is the even the car repair shops, they assume your insurance is going to pay for the loaner. So you need to have that special rider on your auto insurance to get loaners for repairs. And if not, you pay for it out of your own pocket. What I have seen, though, is a lot of the car shops, because I've done it myself, they do courier, where they'll one way, though. They'll take you to work. You drop your car off in the morning, they'll take you to work. It's up to you to figure out a way to get back to the shop to pick up your car.
Hey, Steve.
Yep.
I'm thinking of ordering an iMac. When is the best time to come in and see you about ordering it? I was thinking on Friday.
Pretty much any time. We're here all week. We have seen some pretty short supplies of the iMacs, even the stock iMacs. But nobody wants a stock iMac because it only comes with 256 storage, which is really annoying. So you always want it's basically intended for people who use a lot of external storage. Because the iMacs went to SSD only, they went to a smaller drive, just like they did in the laptops a few years ago. And most people want to buy at least a terabyte drive, and so that's a custom order. We used to custom orders were taking a week or two, but now we're seeing them take a couple of months, partly because of the production lines all were shut down for a while.
Wow. Yeah.
But even still, we're seeing custom order Macs are taking at least 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, Steve, I have a question about an iPhone 8 Plus.
Well, hang on a second, Ken. Did you have
yeah, I was wondering if the federal import restrictions from Canada are having any effect on your being able to get computers or parts out of China.
Probably. I don't know. Yeah, Frank, did you have any follow up on?
Well, you know, it's something I needed before the end of the year, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you order it now, you know, it comes now. Usually, it's we start getting those in late November, early December, where businesses need to buy a new computer before the year ends for their budgeting.
Yeah. Well, I'll see you Friday then. Friday morning, probably sometime.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Steve, the question I had was about an iPhone. At what point, at what percentage would you recommend to change the battery?
Apple generally recommends 80% or lower.
Okay, I'm at 80%.
We've had some people come in at 81%, 82%, and it's, we could replace it, but, maybe wait a month.
Yeah, I'm just at 81, and it's said a couple times, or it says in the battery setting that the phone's shut down because it wasn't able to supply the peak power.
Yeah, so it'll there's that toggle now where you can slow the processor down so it doesn't draw so much power.
Right. So at some point, and how long do they usually take?
Generally a couple hours.
Okay, so do I have to make an appointment?
We'd like you to do a reservation on our website, and then we can schedule you to come in so we don't have too many people show up at once.
Yeah. How much are batteries to replace?
About $60.
Oh, that's not bad.
Now, I just read an article about battery longevity saying that when you charge them, and I use an induction charger, that you take the cover, the safety cover, off of the iPhone before you put it in the charger. Well, the cover I've got does not really come off very easily, and it's simpler just to leave it there. And what damage is that doing to the battery by having it warm when I take it off the charger?
Well, there's that catch-22 that heat and cold can damage the batteries. When you're charging the battery, you're putting power into it, so it's generating heat. In a lot of the cases, you don't need to take off because they're thin enough for the wireless charging to work. But we sometimes see that it doesn't charge quite as fast because it doesn't have the as close to the induction coil on the back of the phone as it can be. But generally speaking, it shouldn't hurt it too much. There is an interesting feature that Apple added in a recent OS where a lot of people will plug their phone in to charge overnight. And so normally what would happen is in a couple hours the phone is fully charged, and then it sits there fully charged, trying to still charge overnight. So what the iPhones do, especially if you're using the Apple charger, is they will do a quick charge to like 80% and then stay there, and they will learn what time you get up in the morning. So if you get up at 8, about 7:30 or so, it will finish the charge and top off. So by the time you get up, you're at 100% charge. So it doesn't keep it fully charged all the time.
Well, I have an iPhone 8. I'm not sure if that procedure is available on the phone, but it does end up charged at 100% when I get up, and it could be warm.
Yeah, generally when you charge a battery, it is going to get warm.
Do you know whether the iPhone 8 has that feature about stopping at 80% until the normal wake up time?
It's the OS version. I don't think it's the phone version.
Oh, okay. I'll have the latest iOS.
Let me see if I can find when they added that. Let's see. Top up overnight.
So if I have the latest iOS, that should be automatically in there then.
Yeah.
I know on mine, sometimes, what time I plug it in, charge up. If I'm more like 11 o'clock, it'll say it'll be ready at 5 or 4:35 or 5:30.
Yeah.
I noticed that in one of the updates that started doing that.
I've got an iPhone 7 and it does that. So it's pretty much the OS version. There was an Apple article about it, but I can't find it offhand.
Oh, you said OS, so I was thinking that meant iOS.
Yeah, the iOS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the OS is named iOS.
Steve, can I put in a couple things here?
Sure.
On my iPad, when it's plugged in by cable to the charger, there'll be times when it'll show the little battery icon is just white and just say not charging.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds like a feature of the iPad where it simply reaches a point where it's full enough and it stops charging. Is that a correct guess?
Yeah, it's the operating system on both the iPhone and the iPad.
Okay. Now, another quick question. Is there any way to boost the receiver strength, so to speak, of an iPad to Wi-Fi so that it picks up weaker Wi-Fi better?
Not really. You can change the orientation of the antenna. So turn it 90 degrees and see if you get a better signal.
Now, is the antenna a loop around inside it or what?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, because I was talking to George the other day about this, and I asked him if he thought the antenna was electrically connected to the case, and he thought not, and I'm guessing that's true too, right?
I would doubt it. I don't know.
If you handle the case, because he said that if you were to touch the case, it would increase the antenna strength.
Yeah. If you put a big wire off the top off your device, you can boost the signal. So you may remember years ago where phones you had an antenna that stuck way up, and then there was a collapsible antenna that you had to extend to work and then retract when it was done, and then they went to little nub antennas, and now all the antennas are internal and you don't see them at all.
Right.
Yeah.
No. So basically, there's no exterior connection to an antenna in an iPad.
I have seen companies that will sell antenna signal boosters. Especially on an iPhone, you can see the antenna around the outside edges. It's easiest on the silver phone. You can see where the breaks are in the antenna for the different frequencies between the cell signal and the Wi-Fi signal. I would imagine it's similar on the iPad. Both my iPads are black, so it's hard to see those breaks. And so I'm guessing that the signal boosters do tap into that metal, so that you can use an external antenna.
But that would involve some. I hate to use the word damage, but I can't think of a better one, to the exterior edge of the iPad.
It's probably just physical contact.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for that. Now, the one other thing that I was not sure would get mentioned in here was I saw one article that said that iOS 14 was raising all kinds of havoc with iPhones, and I almost think that Adam actually touched on this at the very start of his presentation, where it involved backing up and then dumping it out and then reloading it or some crazy thing. But it was battery drainage stuff and then access to things in the phone you couldn't get to anymore. And I guess that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, and the 14.02 update fixed a lot of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things...
That's why you should wait, a month or so before you update a operating system, because whether it's Apple or especially Microsoft, they're coming out with updates and it messes things up. So you have to wait for a couple of updates.
Yes.
Yeah, wait for the 0.1, if not the 0.2.
Steve has repeatedly pointed this out, and so I hold back until it, like you say, it's a 0.1 or 0.2. Yeah.
Yeah, I always, on one of my machines, I update it as soon as it comes out.
Yeah.
Charlie, when you were talking about the antenna earlier, if it was part of the case of the iPad, my gut feeling is no, that the case is actually the ground, and antennas never want to be touching ground.
What is the case grounding to?
Itself.
Oh, but you're saying that the internal electronics would ground to the case, use the case as a ground.
That's correct.
A non-earth ground, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a picture going around, the Security Now had it, about, it was some generator thing, and somebody had a 5-gallon bucket of dirt with the ground rod stuck in it. That's grounded, right?
Yeah.
Well, they could use coffee grounds.
Yeah.
Well, ground is always relative,
If I might just share one more fairly short thing relating to Wi-Fi signal strength. I was talking to George recently and asking if there was a way to get a more detailed display of the strength of incoming Wi-Fi signals than just the little ideograph or whatever that has the dot 3 curved bars type, that kind of thing. And he recommended an app to me, but I went to the App Store and did not find it, and then I Googled it, and I have a feeling it's no longer available. But what I found out, and this is probably old news to you guys that know all about this stuff, but on an iPad, if you have Airport Utility installed, you can go into the settings in the settings part, not the Airport app, and there's under the Airport, there's a toggle to change it to a signal strength thing, and then you go back into Airport and you tap on something up in the corner, and it gives you a list of all your incoming Wi-Fi and strength in, I don't know, is that decibel meters?
Yeah, Wi-Fi scanner. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Scanner. So that was kind of helpful. It confirmed that mine is as poor as I think it is. That's all for me. Bye.
Well, if there's no more questions, we can probably call it a night.
I have a Wi-Fi question too.
Sure.
If that'll help. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Doug. You get the last question.
I couldn't tell it. So a mesh Wi-Fi system, I presently have an extender in one room, but I have to go into settings and tell my device to pick the extender, or if I go back into the main area near the Spectrum router or to switch back and forth. So I'm always switching back and forth.
It's set up wrong then.
Oh, so
you should
not only that, but an
what
extender,
I was curious about.
An extender will cut the speed.
Yeah. So there's two issues. The main Wi-Fi and your extended Wi-Fi should have the same name. so you don't switch back and forth. You let the computer find the best signal itself. And the way extenders work is it cuts the signal in half.
Oh.
It sends half the signal back to the main and then half the signal on to do the extension. That's the biggest advantage of a mesh network, is it has a subcarrier that handles the back talk, so it gives you the full signal strength forward as well. And right now, the Eero 3-pack is on sale for $269. It's Prime Day. How long?
Yeah, I was looking.
Yeah.
I was looking on the site. Okay, thank you.
I saw that about.
Thanks
the
very
Eero.
much for this.
Yeah.
I have an Eero here that I got after you recommended.
Oh crap! It's down to $174 for the Eero 3-pack.
Yeah, the 2 packs were on sale. They were all on sale.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got it as per your recommendation, and the biggest benefit I get out of the extender is that it's an automatic nightlight on my hallway upstairs.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever really gotten a signal through it. I don't use a laptop upstairs much, but this house has plaster and chicken wire in the wall, so an extenders seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, the Eero app will tell you which device your device is connected to, so you can see if you're connected to the main one or one of the mesh satellites. Alrighty, so Shirley, why don't you close us out?
Oh,
All
Shirley,
right, well-
Shirley, by the way, Arlene picked this image that you see for my virtual background. Just letting you know,
Okay.
Arlene picked it out for me.
Okay, well, that was very nice of her.
What's for next month? Do we have a topic?
I believe I am doing something on SSDs.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. November
Sure.
11th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll discuss more at our board meeting next week, but that's, you're on the schedule there
All right. Is,
and everything, but,
is Bob
so
Hoey doing
thank
his
you
Q&A?
so much. Yes.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
anybody wishes to come.
If you wanted.
And are we doing this as a Zoom meeting again, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Did you do one last month?
contact Bob for the Zoom link.
Yep. Anybody that wants to chat on Saturday, just send me an email, let me know, and I'll send out a link on Saturday.
Okay, you gonna do it, Steve?
No, I'm working.
You're working? Okay.
Right, so, looks like we had a good meeting. We had quite a few people in. Thank you so much for everybody who joined and listened. Adam is always interesting, along with his friend Chuck. So I guess we got high marks from Chuck for being interactive, which was probably nice for him. So again, I guess we can next week.
Nope, looks like she's cutting out.
And
Shirley, you
which would be
froze
very-
on me.
did I noticed that a lot of people froze when they were talking. On Steve and other people would suddenly freeze up. So when they talked. So we'll see what Steve can,
You have too much
Why
running
that
on your
did
iPad,
that.
probably.
I don't know. So again, thank you all for coming. Hope to see all the board members next week. See
Good
everybody
meeting.
else next week.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Night all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Go eat your virtual brownies.
That's right. Go eat those brownies.
I already ate my real ones.